Welcome to everyone. I am Rebecca Snyder, Executive Director of Executive Alliance, and I am delighted to welcome you to our Behind the Green Bag appointments session. Today we have Samantha Ardinger, who is the current Placement Director for Governor Hogan's Appointments Office. So prior to that, she served as an Assistant State's Attorney for Harford County in the state's attorney's office, and she's a barred attorney in Maryland. She holds a JD from the University of Maryland School of Law and a bachelor's degree from Elon University.
I actually went UV, sorry.
University of Baltimore.
Yep, I did.
Goodness, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
No, you're okay. My mom went to Maryland.
To the University of Baltimore. And if you all didn't know, the Appointments Office aids the governor's selection of individuals for appointed positions for state agencies, public boards, and commissions. And so there are over 500 boards and commissions in the state of Maryland, and they're always looking for fabulous candidates. And of course, our job is to promote women to those positions. So Samantha, without any further ado, I will turn it over to you. For our participants, I'll be manning the chat. If you have questions, feel free to jump in, but you can also use the chat, and we are recording the session. So Samantha, if you want to share your screen, we're all on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of start off, I know that you gave me a great introduction, thank you, but just to kind of let people know what I do as a placement director. So basically I'm Secretary KV's right-hand man in handling boards and commissions as well as special job appointments. So what that means is that I handle everything from interviewing to vetting candidates to finding appropriate spots for people to be kind of put on a board. We don't actually do the appointment ourselves. We gear everything up for the governor, who handles all appointments. But we are the ones who get everything set up and put before him for his consideration. So I kind of do everything that there is to do for the appointments process, both for boards, commissions, as well as for jobs. The jobs that we handle are the special political appointments, which are any jobs that handle policy. So anybody in lead shops in any of the departments are specially appointed. So I will go ahead and start the presentation now. Right. All right. And it's my understanding that this will be shared with everybody afterwards. So I do have links in here for you guys, so no need to write them down. And I also have my contact information at the end, just so that if you do have any questions or any, things that are related to you personally, of what board you think you might fit on or anything like that, you can reach out to me. So again, what do? We assist the governor in appointing to over 500 boards and commissions. The governor is ultimately the person who does appoint to these boards and commissions, but because there's so many, he does need the appointments office to help him sort out, reappointments, new appointments, and what exactly the seats need, because a lot of the seats have specific requirements, whether it be you have to have some kind of finance background, and that's super general, or whether you need to be a barred attorney, a non-attorney. There's a lot of boards like that. So of the 500 boards and commissions, a lot of them stem from departments, meaning that they are regulatory or licensing boards or boards over specific divisions. So they're board of directors for specific things. So for example, there's a handgun roster board within the Maryland State Police that handles all potential handgun issues that could happen, not whether somebody has violated it, but what handgun should be allowed or not allowed in the state of Maryland. So some of the board appointments are general. What does that mean? That means that as soon as the governor appoints you to that board, you are set, you are in that seat. The rest of the boards require Senate or House confirmation, which means that once you are appointed by the governor, you are in that seat pending confirmation. So if you are appointed during recess or not during session, you would sit in that seat until the next session, and then you would go before the Senate or the House. And once you get confirmation, then you can stay in the seat. If you did not achieve confirmation, then you will be removed from the seat, and then the seat becomes vacant for somebody else. But you have the same duties and rights as a confirmed member during recess. So our biggest task is obviously the green bag to the Senate for session for Senate confirmed boards. So all names in the green bag include Senate confirmed boards that were appointed during recess, and then a whole bunch of Senate confirmed board seats that we are holding off, and then we submit to the governor to approve at the beginning of session. I'm just trying to get to the next screen. Sorry, no idea why it was not working. All right. All right, so the green bag in the Senate confirmation hearing. So every year on the 40th day of session, we go, well, this year we won't physically go to the governor's office. We'll just send it via email and inter-office mail. But in the past, as you saw from the picture in the last slide, we would go and we would physically present the governor with all green bag submissions. So this year it's going to be on Friday, February 19th. And the green bag, as I said before, contains the names of the candidates that are being suggested for Senate confirmed boards. Last year was really awesome for us because it was the year of women, as Governor Hogan declared, and half of our green bag submissions were women. So that was a really big achievement for us. I was super happy to be a part of that. But at that time when we present the green bag names to the governor, he reviews and approves those names for the green bag. And then we also send all of those names to the Senate's Executive Nominations Committee. You can find out who is serving on that committee if you go to the Senate's website. And at that time, they set up confirmation hearings for each person. So let's say that you are submitted, you apply in the next week or so, we get you through our vetting process, we send you to the governor for a seat. Governor says, yep, I approve them for this seat on this board. At that point, we send your name to the staff for the Executive Nominations Committee. The staff member then reaches out to everybody and says, hey, when works for you? At this point, it's a little bit different because all of the meetings will be virtual. So before you would have had to travel down to Annapolis for this confirmation hearing, but now instead it will just be online. So at that time, you would stand before the Executive Nominations Committee. They typically do an entire board at one time, unless somebody has a scheduling issue. Normally, they just go through and ask you basic questions. Your senator stands up, gives a little bio on you. You can answer these questions. Sometimes they don't have any questions, and the questions change based on the board activity. And you know, one senator might know you and say something positive about you as well. So that's pretty much how it goes. It's not that long for each person typically. And then at that point, the committee deliberates, and if they confirm you, they'll let us know, and then we let you know, and we let the staff for the board know as well, and then you officially take your seat on the board. Sorry, I don't know why it's being finicky with letting me switch screens. But so the website basics, this is where you would start the application process to get your name in our system. So I put the website for you, and then if you, when you do look at this, you'll see that as you open it up on the right-hand side, so I'll just go ahead and pop this open and let me know if there's any issue seeing it. But you'll see that here's where you would submit an application. This is submit an appointee exemption disclosure form. All Senate confirmed boards require this, and some general boards require it because you'll probably be applying for several boards and not just one board. Sometimes it's easier just to submit an application, and then I reach out later and say, hey, you've been approved or you're being considered for this board. Can you please submit an appointee exemption disclosure form? What this means is just going through any potential financial or employment conflicts that you might have with that specific board, which is why sometimes it's easier just to wait and do it once you know what board you're being considered for. The fact page goes through anything you might want to know if you're submitting the application. I'm pretty much detailing all that now, so this might be something that you want to reference later. As for board names and descriptions, this has all of the statutory language for the boards and commissions. So if you're wondering, hey, could I fit on this board? This is the link that will take you to the statutory descriptions, and it will tell you, you know, for the 529 board, you have to have 5 members with significant experience in financing, accounting, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it also will tell you the term years. So this is some great language to see if you would even be a good fit for the board. And then Maryland Manual Online obviously is a wealth of knowledge, but the better link I would go to would be this Executive Commissions and Committees Task Force. So this has the alphabetical listing of all boards and commissions that the governor appoints to. So this is something to look through, and let's say that you click on it. It should have for you who's currently serving, the website for it, the contact if you need to know more. And then oftentimes if you click on this, it will take you to a summary of what the board does. So I find that this is, you know, anytime somebody asks me, hey, what does this board do? This is where I get most of the information. If you can't find the information here, my next best guess would be to reach out to the staff. However, I have great relationships with all of the boards, so I am happy to do that. I'm happy to compile this information for you. I know that everybody's super busy, and we're just so happy to have volunteers help us. So if you have several boards that you want to look at, you can email me and say, hey, can you tell me more information about this, 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 this? And if you think I'd be a good fit, and I'll go and I'll find your resume that you submit with your application, and I can compile the information that you would need to, one, see if there's a seat that would fit your expertise, and also to see if it's something that you would be interested in. So absolutely reach out to me. I have my contact information at the end. I'm always happy to assist anybody with that information. So application tips, this is something that I find a lot of people have questions with. So the most important is that the application will time out after 20 minutes. So you should plan to do everything in one sitting. So because the application requires a resume, you should have this all set and prepared before you even sit down and open up that application. Because once you do it, you're going to want to have it ready to attach and before it times out. So it'll ask you to put state agencies and commissions that you're interested in. So I would encourage people to research ahead of time just to see if there are boards and commissions that you are specifically interested in. But I put a note too that if you are you want to serve, but you really don't know what, and you're kind of open to us reaching out to you saying, hey, would you be interested in this? Just put the specific departments. And beyond that, we always still look through the database looking for anybody who would be a good fit for boards that we have openings on. But if you put a department, then I'm able to say, okay, so they're interested in something having to do with transportation. Let's see what openings we have. And it might not even be a board within transportation. It might be a labor board that has a seat requiring transportation knowledge or something along those lines. So it allows us to have more wiggle room with options for you. So for salary on this, I get this question a lot because these are volunteer based. We just ask that you put $1. This is the same application that you would use if you were applying for a special appointment job. So because of that, that's why there is the salary requirement. We don't have the ability to have 2 separate apps. It's just easier to have one application. So for the background highlights, you can just put the basics because your resume should have more. So rather than putting, you know, I worked at the state's attorney's office from 2017 to 2019, and here's everything I did, I would just put ASA, state's attorney's office, 2017 to 2019. Leave it there and then move on to the next one. So just know that you can tailor that, and that'll help keep you within the 20-minute timeline. Because I know a lot of people put lots and lots of information, but if it's on your resume, we'll look at your resume, no fear on that. This is just something basic so that if I want to go back and I want to search and I want to find somebody who has banking experience, I can search by banking or other terms, and I can pop up applications that are linked to that. So just to let you know why we have the background highlights section and how I use it. So when you've successfully completed all 3 forms of the application, you'll get a confirmation screen as well as a confirmation email. If you do this and you don't get either of those, reach out to me and I can see what happened. You might have where your application submitted, but another form didn't. And that might still be sufficient for me to look through and find stuff for you, and we can just correct it later. But that's most times it'll work out and you'll have the confirmation screen, but for some reason it's weird. One more thing to note about the application though, if you do it on your iPad, it will not work. So you do have to do it on a laptop or a screen. If that is an issue for you and you don't have a laptop or access to a desktop or anything like that, please let me know and I can work it out with you. I've submitted applications before for people. It just means I sit on the phone with you and I fill it out for you. Again, that's my job. I have no problem doing that for you if it's going to assist you. But if you only have an iPad, it's not going to work. So that's just something to be aware of.
Samantha, it's Rebecca. I have a question. And actually, at the bottom, just to advance your screen, there's a context-sensitive menu at the bottom that you can just press your different slides. So you don't have to go back and forth.
Ah, okay.
But the question is, when one is putting in an application, if you don't know sort of what board or commission you want to apply for, you just want to put your application out there. How long does the application stay on file, and how do you update it if you already have something in the system?
So great question. So the application stays on file for, we have applications from 2014 when Hogan's term began, or initial term began. But when the change happens between governors, we lose those applications. So it switches from governor to governor. But if you applied anytime from 2014 to now, we have your application on file. If you want to update it and you're like, I don't feel like completely filling out the application again, you can just email me and tell me what has updated. And I will put that in our system and update it myself. So whether it be, my address changed, my job changed, anything like that. If you do have an old application and you want to be considered for something, but you don't feel like changing your, doing another application, you're welcome to just reach out to me and say, hey, I already submitted in 2016, nothing's changed. This is what I want to be considered for, or this is the general area that I'm interested in. If you do that, then I can start looking for you for stuff. The only thing that we would ask is that for Senate come from boards, we do have to send an updated resume. So unless your resume hasn't changed since the last time that you applied, we do need that. So you might not have to completely fill out the application again, but that's always something that we need. Fortunately, some people's application or resume might still be up to date. It hasn't changed in years. So that's fine. But that's really the only thing that we would need in terms of updates if your contact information hasn't changed.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yep. Oh my gosh. You told me how to do it and I didn't.
It's no matter. We're all friends here. It's not a big deal.
Oh, you can tell I have no IT knowledge. All right, so how to find out more about boards and commissions. So first and foremost, your best resource is going to be me. Like I said, I have no problem if you reach out to me and you tell me generally what you're interested in or what your skill sets are and what you kind of want to achieve, anything like that. I can help find boards for you, or if you already have specific boards in mind, but you just want to know more and you want to know if there's even a seat that would be available for you, your best bet is really going to be to email me. I can assist you in making sure that there's a seat open. Maybe there's not a seat open now. Maybe there's not a seat open for this greenback session, but there might be for one of the recess appointments later on this year. So some seats are expiring in September, in December, and we're not handling those right now for green bag. We're going to wait and handle those during recess. But one of those seats might be a better fit for you than something we have right now. So don't get discouraged if you're not seeing anything that might fit for you right now. Definitely reach out to me. Let me be a good asset to you in terms of figuring out what works for you, because oftentimes people get appointed to boards that they didn't even apply to in the beginning, or that they just put on there but had no idea what they actually did. We definitely want to make sure that we're putting people on boards that are a good fit for them, as well as something where they have something that they can give back to the board and they can be a great member to that board. So beyond me, here's some other ways to figure out more about the boards and commissions on your own. So if you go to the board names and descriptions under quick links, that's what I showed you before. It has the statutory language. From there, you can find out what the seat requirements are, as well as what the terms are. So you'll also be able to see if there's a term limit for any seat. So some seats have, I'd say the average is you can serve 2 consecutive terms in a row, and that's it. So what does that mean? That means that if and just to kind of backtrack, so the seats for each board, and this is a question that we always get, the seats for each board are set. So let's say that it's always going to be June 30th, 2020 to June 30th, 2024. It doesn't matter if you get appointed in 2021, that seat is still June 2020 to June 2024, but you're serving a remainder of that. So that happens if somebody resigns from the board, or if they were in holdover and we didn't find a good candidate for that seat until a year later. But you still have the same full effect as a member, even though you're coming in on a remainder term. But that being said, that wouldn't count against you for the consecutive terms. So if there's a 2-term limit, that wouldn't count. You would still be able to serve 2 more full terms. But that being said, no one is ever guaranteed reappointment. That is completely up to the governor in determining who gets to be reappointed to boards. And sometimes people don't get reappointed because they're not actually helping the board. They're not coming to meetings. They're not prepared for meetings. But oftentimes it's that, hey, this is a really high demand board and we need to make sure that everybody gets a chance to serve on this board, and we need to make sure that we have, different people coming and bringing different things to this board. So oftentimes that happens. It's not common for a lot of boards, but for the higher level boards, that is what happens. We try our best to make sure that we don't just keep somebody in the same seat over and over and over. Another good resource would be the Maryland Manual Online. This is what I showed you before. So the link I put in here, it's also on our website under quick links. You'll find the alphabetical list of all states and boards. And then as I showed you, if you click on it, it'll show you who is currently serving, what their term end date is, as well as if you click on the actual name, it'll take you to the description. And most times it will have a website link to whatever department runs it. Some of them are not run by a department, so they might not have a website. And some departments are better than others at making sure that their website for the board has all the information you could ever want. So the health department and the labor department have everything you could want about weighing me, posting the meeting minutes, what their business is, who's currently on the board. Some of them even have bios of who's currently on the board, so you can kind of get a feel for what other people are bringing to the board and whether you would be a good fit. That is a great asset as well. And again, I'm always here to help answer any questions. And then the last slide is just if you have any more questions, this is my contact information. So right now, just because of COVID, I'm currently the only person going into the office at the moment. So I go in 5 days a week, but obviously I'm not in the office right now because I'm doing this presentation. So I find that the easiest thing to do is to email me. That way I can get back to you pretty quickly But if you do need to reach me, I would suggest that you reach out to my main line. And if you leave a voicemail, then I'll be able to answer it quickly. If you leave a voicemail on the, or sorry, not on the main line, on my office. If you leave a voicemail on the main line, I don't have access to that. So it would take some time for me to get back to you on that. But if you just reach out to my office or if you email me, I'll be able to get back to you typically within 24 hours with an answer to your question.
Samantha, thank you so much for rundown. I know earlier in the presentation, Lynn, you asked how we can find out where there are open seats, and I know you had navigated to that to show me before, but could you show the group?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so if you come here and you see right here current vacancies. All right, so right here, if you search by the commission that you're looking for, so let's say that you're interested in the Airport Zoning Board, it'll pop down here and I'll show you that there are 0 vacancies, but that there are 2 seats that are expiring in June. So this is something where these people might be term limited in their seat, or they might not be, and they might be pending for reappointment before the governor. So this is something where you can kind of get an idea, but not fully what's happening. So if this is the case, reach out to me, ask me, I'll get back to you with what's actually happening. And again, this is showing, this is a good example of where the seats actually have requirements. So both of these, you have to be residing in these counties. But some of them will have vacancies, and then that will let you know that that this would be a good board for you to apply to. But just because it doesn't say that there's vacancies doesn't mean that there aren't somebody in holdover that's a good seat for you to be considered for. So just make sure that you reach out, but this is a great starter to let you know what's vacant and what's currently in holdover. Holdover again means that the term on the seat has expired, but they just haven't been reappointed. So in this case, this person's not in holdover yet, but their term is coming to a close in June of this year.
Got it. Samantha, how long does it take normally for a placement to happen? You know, so are you, for instance, this Allegheny College Maryland Board of Trustees, if that term ends 6/30, like when do you start looking for appropriate candidates?
Yeah, so it changes for each board just because some of the boards have staff members, some of them have limited staff, some of them have no staff. So oftentimes, for example, the labor boards, they have somebody specific to those boards who is a board liaison, as does the Department of Health. It is that person's job to make sure that they know who is coming up for reappointment, who is expiring, and to let us know, hey, we want this person reappointed, this person hasn't been showing up, this is going to be a vacant seat. So they'll reach out to us ahead of time. And at that point, we'll be able to figure out, okay, we have this seat coming up. It's for a consumer on a labor licensing board. I'm going to start looking for candidates. I'm going to start reaching out for candidates to let them know. So it depends on the board and how engaged the staff is. But my job is also to go through the other boards that don't have as active staff. And I'm always looking for the boards that are expiring, that have terms that are expiring. And at that point, I start trying to figure out if the person who's in that seat is eligible for reappointment or not. And then I also look at other candidates that we have. Just because you're eligible for reappointment, like I said, doesn't mean that you are automatically going to get it. So sometimes it's a situation where we need to add something different to the board. We need another piece of experience, or we need more women on the board or anything like that. And so that's when I'll start to look into our database and I'll try to find other applicants. So pretty much if I had to give you a timeline of how this works, if you apply and there is a board automatically open, I'm going to do my best to get this done within to have you set up to go to the governor within a week to 2 weeks. At that point, now it's just a waiting game until the governor is actually available to take the next set of appointments. Right now, we're not going to be sending anything to the governor until that February 19th, because we're holding everything for the green bag. So our timeline's a little bit more stretched out right now of what we're doing. So right now we're just compiling for the green bag. But let's say that this was a typical recess appointment, most times you hear within a month if there is a vacancy on the board. If there's not, and it's going to be, a future seat that you could be appointed to, I will reach out and I will let you know, just because now you're no longer going to be in that kind of month waiting period. Now it's going to be a couple months or something. But once that seat opens up, that is when we can start the process. And typically we can get everything done from getting you set up in our system, getting you sent to the governor, and getting that appointment back. We can get everything done in a month. At that point, once the governor says, hey, you've been approved for appointment, we reach out to you as well as staff members saying, hey, they've been appointed. We are working on a commission or what other paperwork you might need for that appointment, and we mail it out that day. And we'll also send you a copy of the letter saying, hey, you've been appointed. We also mail it, but because the mail's been a little bit finicky, we tell people to rely on the email letter. Just because some letters have been getting lost in the mail, unfortunately. Not a lot, but some of them. So that's pretty much the timeline. I hope that answers that question. Okay.
So for everyone on our session, what questions do you have for Samantha?
Is there a way to search, I guess, from the reverse, where it says, I'm a Baltimore County resident and this is my skill set, what boards are currently available, looking for that, instead of us, because that list was very long.
Yeah.
To just go click, click, click.
Yeah. So unfortunately for the public on our website, there's not, but this is where I'm willing to help you, because it's much, much easier for me to find, a board for a Baltimore County resident. So please feel free to email me, tell me what you're interested in, tell me, any of your specifics, and I can find you boards like that. It might be of interest to you, or maybe you didn't think about, but I think you would be a good fit for. But unfortunately, at this point, there's just no way to have that kind of search engine on our website. But I have the ability to do it for you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. I just wanted to follow up with a question to say, would it be for someone like Eileen, would we say, put your application in and then flag it in an email to you so that you can find the appropriate boards, or does she send the resume to you first? What's better?
So honestly, it can work either way. Just because you fill out an application and you put, hey, XYZ boards, doesn't mean that you will only be considered for XYZ boards. So oftentimes I say that the best thing for you to do is to submit your application, put generally the boards that you think you're interested in, and then shoot me an email, say, hey, I submitted my application. This is a quick excerpt of my background. I have legal experience and I'm interested in boards dealing with women's issues or anything pertaining to children. And then at that point I can be like, okay, perfect. Let me find your application. I'm going to see where you live. Great. Let me see if there's anything open or anything opening that would be a good fit for you. And then I might even reach out and be like, hey, I know you said you only were interested in, X and X areas of board activity, but would you be interested in this? They could really use an attorney, a financial investor, something like that. So that's something where just because you put something on your application doesn't mean that it can't be changed and you can't be considered for something else.
And how long is the application good for? So if I filled out, or if anyone on the call filled out an application in previous years, how long is that held?
Yeah, so our applications stay on file from 2014 until the end of Hogan's term. So as long as you have an application in during those times, it'll still be active. I'll still be able to access it. The only issue we run into is if you have anything change. So the biggest thing that we need to know is contact information change. just because if we don't have a good email or a cell phone for you, then or a good address for you, then you're not going to be getting some of the communications that we're trying to get to you. Another thing is just an updated resume, but that is something that if it's a Senate confirmed board and we don't have, like I see that you have a 2016 application, I'll reach out and I'll say, hey, we got your 2016 application, but we do need an updated resume unless nothing has changed since 2016, and then we'll just use that resume. But I just want to confirm that everything on your 2016 resume is, up to date and accurate, and we can send it to the Executive Nominations Committee.
So
Lisa,
this is Lynn.
oh, I'm
go ahead.
sorry. Lisa, I think you'd want to jump in there.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Some of our members, I know when they're looking for something in addition to do, they're not always wanting to do something that's directly tied to their work. They're sort of trying to expand themselves and get into an area that's a little different. And I wondered, obviously there's a lot of things on there that people wouldn't have active experience in those fields. And I was wondering how much of it, when you're weighing, or the boards are weighing, people's applications, how much is sort of focused on real skills experience in a particular field versus, general skill set?
Yeah. So a lot of the boards have just general member seats, but some of them have specific seats that require specific experience. So that's when we're looking, does your resume and your prior work experience and training match up with what this board needs? So like when I showed you guys the 529 board, if you don't have significant financial banking experience, that's not going to be a board for you. That is where your current employment does matter. As for the other boards, for example, the Women's Commission, the Citizens Advisory Commission for any county for children, those just have general member seats. So it doesn't matter what your background is, so much as just making sure that we have a good blend of backgrounds. So just because, we have 6 attorneys applied doesn't mean that all couldn't be on that board and all bring something diverse to that board. That is something we like to look for, but just because your resume has something doesn't mean that I'm not going to consider you for another board. This is where it really comes into play of you putting boards down or you emailing me and saying, hey, I gave a cursory view and I couldn't find a board that kind of fit this, but I'm really interested in, HVAC, or I'm really interested in something with electrician. I want to learn something about a trade, because I find that that's actually one of the most interesting boards that we have, or board options that we have, is serving as a consumer on a licensing board. So for example, there's like the Board of Physicians, the Board of Nursing, the Board of Master Electricians. All of those kinds of things require consumers, and it doesn't matter that you have no knowledge whatsoever of it. It's just so that we have a consumer coming to the table saying, okay, I'm hearing this licensing issue, whether it be, they were denied for licensing, they were denied for a renewal of their license, or somebody complained about something that they did and now their license has been suspended and now they're before the board. So I find that that's a very interesting thing that we always need candidates for those consumer seats. So if you're one of those people who's like, hey, I do XYZ for my job, but when I want to volunteer for the state, I want to focus on something else. You might not even know what it is. You just know that you don't want to focus on the same thing you do at your job. If you just email me, I can send you some options of what we have open. I can send you that information, because it might be something that you never thought you'd be interested in, but you're like, you know what, it would actually sound really interesting to be a consumer on the board for state pilots. So that's definitely something, again, I hate to keep saying email me, but I can really be the best resource for you in determining boards that fit for you.
I think that's great. I mean, I think that would be comforting in a sense to members that are maybe a little intimidated about throwing their hat in there. If there's somebody that can talk to them and sort of walk through possible options and think of things that they wouldn't think of. So
Yeah.
Thank you for offering to do that.
Absolutely.
And when you're looking and searching on the list, when it lists out the board seats, there isn't information to say consumer seats are available or looking for an attorney in the background of medical, or it doesn't give that detailed.
No.
So you're saying just make a list and maybe email you with a summary of skill set and start the dialogue.
Yeah. And even
Okay.
if even if you just know that you want to, like, if what I said about consumers just really inspired you and you're like, you know what, I'd like to learn about like a different trade and kind of sit as a consumer on that seat. I know I'd be interested in it. If you just shoot me an email and say, hey, you know, generally I'd like to work in a field I have no knowledge of and just kind of be a consumer or a general public member assisting. Even though that's really broad, I'll work with you. I'll help you find something that you think would be a good fit for you, that we actually have a vacancy for you to be considered on. But unfortunately, the application doesn't really have a spot for you just to generally put, you know, here's my life bio, you know, of what I'm interested in and what I could do, what I think I could do. It doesn't have that. Unfortunately, because I think a lot of people would just tell us so much and then it'd be like, I have no idea where to put you now. But it's easier if you just reach out to me personally.
So Sam, Lynn Durbin here, just 2 questions. One, if we want our application for sure to potentially get into the bag that goes to the governor and the Senate on February 19th, when should we have our application into you?
Oh, sorry. So just to answer that first question.
So
Yeah. First question.
Answer, just tell me the answer to that, and then I'll ask my second question.
If you can have it into us by the middle to end of next week, I can work my best to see if there's any vacancies that would fit for you. But that would be the best time for you to get it in, is by the middle to end of next week.
Perfect, because nothing like a deadline.
Yeah, and just shoot me an email just so I can pull it out, because we get tons of applications every day. And I wrote down everybody's name who's in here so that I can be on the lookout for your applications. But just shoot me an email as well.
So Sam,
Okay.
oh, I'm sorry, Lynn.
Can I do my follow-up question?
Your second question, yeah.
Yeah, so my second question is, I already sit on the Supplemental Retirement Pension Board, and I would be interested in serving on another board. Is there an issue on serving on more than one board?
Yeah. So this is another question we get a lot too, is people start serving on one board and they're like, you know what, I have time to serve on another, because some boards only meet 4 times a year, once a month. Some boards meet 2 to 3 times a month. And if you're on one of those boards, you know, unless you're retired, you might not have time to do a second one. So the rule is you cannot be on 2 boards that compensate. So all boards will reimburse for travel, but only a handful of boards actually compensate. So you might get, you know, anywhere from like $100 to $400 a meeting or something like that. If you're on one of those boards, a second board cannot compensate. But fortunately, a lot of boards do not compensate, they just reimburse. But the rule that we do have, and obviously since you're already serving, you would be fine, but we just don't appoint somebody to 2 boards right off the bat. We like to let them serve for a little bit on one. And then if you're comfortable and you've gotten the grasp of it and you're like, hey, I've been to like 4 meetings, I know I can handle this and a second board, what do you got for me? At that point, then we can look for a second board appointment for you. But we have lots of people who do serve on multiple boards, but that's the rule, is it just, you can't have 2 that compensate.
Fantastic, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So Sam, this is Karen Bond. Probably about 3 or 4 years ago, our relationship with the governor's office was the incoming president of Executive Alliance, Pat Lambert, I think she was around that time, would come to Annapolis, obviously pre-COVID, and meet with the appointment secretary and kind of tell the story of X number of Executive Alliance members. So that year, I felt like I got the short end of the stick because I'm sorry it's being taped, I did a board stint as chair of the Amusement Park Safety Board. Sam, my hair stands on my head if you say amusement park, but I was told never to say no to the governor. So I not only served, I chaired for a year because I was told it would help me when I come back again. Was that the truth, Sam? I know we're being recorded.
Well, we thank you for your service. All I can say is that all boards aren't, you know, the Amusement Park Safety Advisory Board is something that it takes a specific person to want to do.
It does. I work for Hopkins, you know,
yeah.
Right kids, but I just, you know,
yeah,
memorable story when I talk to you offline will help you remember our conversation
Yeah.
appreciated the service. I learned how hard the state team works because they were always very prepared for the meetings. They made my life seamless. It was a topic I learned a lot more about. So I showed my ability to pivot.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we never want to put somebody in a board where as soon as they get there, they're like, okay, I got to get out of here. You know, we don't want people resigning from boards. So, you know, I mentioned the consumer option before. There's tons of boards that need consumers. That's not for everybody. You know, it's for those people who are like, you know what, I'm interested in learning about an area that I've never learned about before. But it's definitely not something for everybody. As for you, no, absolutely, that's not going to be held against you. It's definitely something that we look at and we go, wow, like she chaired a board. This is great. But it's nothing that would be negative in any way. You know, definitely we're not going to consider you for that board again since it wasn't up your alley. But it kind of gives me an idea of, okay, so this is not a realm that she's interested in. What else can we find that will actually work? So if you want to shoot me an email and kind of let me know any issues you had with the board, that could better help me find another option for you that would fit. But no, that won't be held against you.
Okay, no, I just meant I was told I get brownie points for doing something that I didn't want to do and being a good chair, but I will definitely email you. Thank you.
Well, I mean, all I'll say is this is I don't know who told you that, and we definitely appreciate your service to that board and especially chairing it. And I'm sure that that year that they had you was amazing. But you know, we don't want to put people on boards that they're like, I don't think I'm
You're
gonna
most gracious. You're most gracious, and I would ride an amusement park in the state of Maryland.
Good.
Seatbelt.
They're doing their job.
Thank you.
No, but like, you know, if don't feel bad if I send you an option for you to be like, that's not for me. You know you better than me.
Okay.
And just because I'm like, hey, based on what you told me, maybe this will be a fit. Like,
Okay.
sometimes I'm just sending you ideas and it doesn't mean like it's this or nothing.
Well,
you know?
I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming Pat,
Okay.
and I love her endlessly, so I'm not even blaming her. I'm not blaming anyone. I grew. So thanks so much, Sam.
Yeah.
Well, and I hope that everyone gets to sit on the board that they love and feel able to serve on. I'm mindful of the time. It's 10:49. And so I want to direct you all to the chat where I've put Samantha's contact information. And I would urge you all to reach out to her. We will look to doing maybe a workshop for Executive Alliance members to get those applications together, because, you know, when we're all pressure prompted on that 20-minute deadline to get everything in, we'll want to make sure that we have all the materials at hand. So thank you all for spending the morning with us on this very hectic first week back. And Samantha, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your insight. And I'm sure we'll have you back again.
And can I just respond to, I see Pamela put a question in the chat.
Oh,
I just wanted to respond to that really quick, just because I just saw it. As for the person whose term ended in 12/2018, it's likely the fact that they have been holdover since 2018. Depending on the board, it could just mean that they haven't found somebody to replace them, but this person is term limited, so they're not just going to have them removed from the board. That happens a lot for people who hit the end of their term limit, but it's a very specific seat. For example, the amusement park advisory board might have a lot of people who are in holdover but term limited, because there's not that many people itching to be on that board. If it is you, please let me know.
Sorry, I should have muted myself.
I just noticed when I looked at one of them, it said 12, the term ended 2018, and it was a number of them. But do you look at the number underneath that says expires like 12/20 or 2022? I guess it is.
Yeah, so I would look for the 12/2018 when the term actually ended. So depending on this board, it might even be that it's not where, you know, it's a term limited, but there's really nobody to fill the seat. It could also mean that this board just hasn't been meeting. There are some boards, not a lot, but there are some boards that haven't really been meeting, not only during COVID, but they didn't really meet during 2019. We're currently in the process, as we come to the end of Hogan's final term, we are in the process of trying to kind of consolidate some boards, especially the boards that haven't been meeting whether that mean to kind of remove the board or to merge that board in with another board with similar business, just to make sure that we don't have any, you know, dead boards that really aren't doing anything, aren't meeting, because we don't want to appoint people to boards that aren't doing anything. If they're not meeting, you don't want to be appointed to that board. So it could be that it would depend on what the board is. I'd have to look.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any last words, Samantha, or to close us out?
Yeah, I mean, thank you guys so much. We are always looking for volunteers to help the state. So I appreciate everybody giving me your time today. Again, just reach out to me, whether it be a question about the application, whether it be to say, hey, I submitted, anything that you have a question with, just let me know. I am always here to you. Again, like I said, email is going to be your best way of getting in contact with me. But I do work in the office every day right now, so I can answer the phone. If you have something that you feel like you'd rather say over the phone, or you think, you know, it could get really complicated in an email, just shoot me an email and we can set up a time to talk. That this is my job. This is what I'm here to do. I'm here to help make this process as easy as it can be for you, so that we can continue to have great volunteers, and especially women, on our boards and commissions. I mean, as a woman myself, I would love to have a lot more female candidates and female appointees to boards.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. I would note for everyone that the first Friday of the month is this coming Friday, January 8th. Executive Alliance will have our lunch with EA session, so join us for that. And our next event coming up will be January 19th, where Tracy M. will talk to us about emotional intelligence, and that's part of our Retool and Reframe series. So hope to see you all sometime soon, and thanks again to Sam for joining us.